Hey guys, it's Mr. Sheeline here. This is going to be a video covering how to multiply and divide while keeping sig figs. At the end of the video, I'm also going to include a couple of examples on how to keep sig figs while adding and subtracting. We really don't get into that, like I mentioned in the notes video. But it's just something, if you really were that curious to see it, I'll have that at the end of the video for you to check out. If you don't already know how to do it, or if you didn't take the time to look it up yourself after the notes the other day. So, like I did with the other video, putting numbers into scientific notation and then taking them out. I'm going to show you these 10 questions for multiplying and dividing first, so that you can write them down. You can then complete them and then watch the rest of the video to see what the answers are. So here are the first 5. So go ahead and pause the video and then track or write all these down so that you can follow along and that you can solve these on your own. Okay, and then here are the other 5. Okay. So let's just go ahead here. So remember, the only way this really works, guys, is if you pause the video, you complete this, and then you watch the rest of it to see if you get it right. Okay, that's how you make the connections in your brain. That's how it is that you actually understand how this works. Basically, just watching me do it does nothing for you. You've got to practice this on your own. Okay, so go ahead, pause the video, work on these on your own, and then after you've completed them, then come back, watch the rest of the video, and see what the answers are. Okay. So obviously you need a calculator for this. So either you can use your phone, you can use your Chromebook, you can use an actual calculator, which I would highly recommend that you use your own calculator. Keep in mind, I will be making a video on how to use this guy and how to more or less work on problems like this using a calculator. That'll be in a separate video, and that'll be a little bit later. Once we get closer to 5.2 is when we'll be looking at that. So anyway, okay, so let's just take a look here. These are pretty easy. You could do these on paper just to make things a little bit quicker. I'm just going to plot these into my calculator and then go for these sig figs. Because remember, that is what we are doing here. So here we're going to have 6 times 0.30 is going to be 1.8. However, I need to make sure I know what I'm doing here in order to write down the correct answer. So this guy right here, 0.30, has 2 sig figs, but my 6 here only has 1 sig fig. So my answer cannot be 1.8. My answer is actually going to be 2. Now, why is it 2? Well, 1.8, I need to round up and to have in order to have just 1 sig fig, because in this case, it'd be silly to round down. We're so close to 2 that it doesn't make any sense. So we'd have to round up and then go to 2. Okay. So let's take a look at this next one. It's going to be 0.03 times 7 times 210. Now, looking at this guy, it looks like we've got 1 sig fig here, 1 sig fig here, and 2 sig figs right here. So our answer should have just 1 sig fig at the end. And then let's plot this in and see what we get. So it'll be 0.03 times 7 times 210. And we get 44.1 on our calculators. But again, it needs to be to 1 sig fig. So how do we get 1 sig fig? Well, basically we can't have this and we can't have that. So it's got to be, now hopefully you didn't do this while working on this. But what I do need is I need to keep this guy. And then I look here, well, it's 44.1. So here, it needs to be either 40 or 50, because it needs to be 1 sig fig. And that's what we do here. It needs to be either 40 or 50. Now, is 44 closer to 40, or is it closer to 50? Okay, it's closer to 40. Okay. Now, why 40 or why 50? Because 40 and 50, that's 1 sig fig. Okay, it can't be 44, because 44 is 2 sig figs. Okay, it can't be 43. because that'd be silly for 1 and 2. Again, it's 2 sig figs. It has to be 1 because this is 1 sig fig, this is 1 sig fig. Okay. 11.6 times 6.24. So 11.6 times 6.24 is going to give me 72.384. Now, I have 3 sig figs for both of these, so my final answer needs to be 3 sig figs. So it needs to be 1, 2, and then 3. So I'm going to look at what's next to the 3, and because it's an 8, I've got to round that 3 up. So my final answer here is going to be 72.4. Okay. Keep on trucking. So 1,000 divided by 8.2. So 1,000 divided by 8.2. That is going to give me 121.95, blah, blah, blah. There's a couple other, decent number of other decimal places, but I'm just going to do this because 2 sig figs here, 1 sig fig here. I need to make sure that this is 1 sig fig. Okay. Now, in order, just like this guy up here, it needs to be 1 sig fig, and the closest the closest thing we can get this to, 100. Okay, it's 121.95. Can't be 120 because that's 2 sig figs. Okay, it can't be. It has to be 1, and the closest thing that we got here is just the 100. Okay, now if this was 160, it would be 200 because it's technically closer, and we'd round up. Okay. Then we've got here 8,088 times 0.4, which is going to give us 3,235.2. We've got 4 sig figs here, and we've got 1 sig fig here. So this is another 1 sig fig. 3,235 is much closer to 3,000 than it is to 4,000. So our final answer here is just 3,000. Okay, moving on. Now, 1.1 times 3.25. So 1.1 times 3.25 is going to give us 3.575. 2 sig figs here, 3 sig figs here. So my final answer should have just 2 sig figs. So my final answer is going to be 3.6. Why? Because 1, 2. But because this guy right next to the 5 is a 7, we're going to round this one up. So it's actually 3.6. Okay, 1,000 divided by 19.7. That's going to give us 50.76, blah, blah, blah. But again, just like on the front here, this is 1 sig fig. These are 3 sig figs. So our final answer has to be 1 sig fig. In this case, it is just going to be a solid 50. Okay, which that one doesn't hurt as bad because it's actually not too far from the actual value. And then the next one, 9.66 divided by 0.33, which is going to give us 29 point, more or less 2.7 repeating. Okay, now I'm not going to write it all out because I know that here I've got 9.66, so 3 sig figs, and then I've got 0.33, which is 2 sig figs. So my final answer should be 2 sig figs. So it needs to be 1, 2. But I have a 2 here, and because it's a 2, we're just going to round down to just 29. And we've got our answer there. Now, these guys, we should have worked with exponents before. This is going to be two great examples on how to multiply these and keeping them in scientific notation, because we can do that here. So what you do, super simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to ignore the times 10 and their exponents. We're going to ignore those. And what we're going to do here is we're going to multiply our separate values. So we're going to multiply 2.63 times 1.72, which is going to give us 4.5236. Okay. Now, that is what we're starting off with. And real quick, I'll write that down, but I'm going to keep my sig figs, which is 3. So it's going to be 4.52. Okay. Now, when you multiply exponents, multiplying exponents is more or less you're adding those together. Dividing is subtracting them, okay, just the exponents. So this will be 4.52 times 10, and then it's just going to be 6 plus a negative 4, which is going to then give us 4.52 times 10 to the second power, okay? Now, if you don't believe me, if you don't think that works, you can try this out on your own if you know how to plot this all in your calculator and double check your answer. If you don't trust me, doubly, you can go then see the video that I've made, or at least when I post the video, go ahead, go check that video out on how to plug this into your calculator so you can just do it all there instead of having to do it by hand in 2 steps. Okay, but this is what you should get, 4.52 times 10 to the second power. So let's do that down here. So again, we're going to ignore the times 10 with the exponent, and we're just going to multiply the 1.3 times the 6.45. So 1.3 times 6.45, which is going to give us an answer here of 8.385, but we have 3 sig figs here, just 2 there. So my answer should have 2 sig figs. Well, it's 8.38. So my final answer will begin with 8.4 times 10, and now I got to figure out what the exponent is going to be. So again, remember, multiplying, you're adding exponents, dividing, you're subtracting them. So here it'll be the 2 plus 2. So my final answer here will be 8.4 times 10 to the 4th power. Okay, easy peasy. Okay, so that does it for these extra practice problems when it comes to multiplying and dividing and keeping sig figs. Now I'm going to just do a couple of questions or a couple of problems concerning adding and subtracting. So if that's all you want to watch, you can go ahead and turn off the video. I highly recommend that you stay on and just watch these couple of questions just to see how this is done. Because I'll just let you know that there will be extra credit, just little bits of extra credit in the future regarding adding and subtracting, and keeping sig fig. So if you're interested in extra credit in the future and knowing how to do this, keep watching. So let's just get straight to it. So here's some example. Here's our first example. So 35.6 plus 56.27. Okay, so more or less what we really care about when we're adding and subtracting is the number of decimal places. So when we have decimal places, we more or less just keep the lowest number of decimal places possible. Okay, so here it's just 35.6 plus 57.27. So we do that, so 35.6 plus 56.27, we add all that together. And our final what we get here is 91.87. Now, there are 2 sig figs in the decimal place for this guy, but there's only 1 over here. So we have to go by 1 decimal place. So our final answer is not going to be 91.87. Our actual final answer is going to be 91.9. Okay, because here we're going to round up because the 7 next to the 8 is closer to the next tens place, so we just round this guy up to the 9, and that's why we get 91.9. Let's do a subtraction one. So because it's literally the same, 16.221 minus 8.28. So again, we're going by the lowest number of decimal places. We really don't care about like these guys over here. It's all about the decimal places. So let's go ahead and do that. So 16.221 minus 8.28 minus 8.28 is going to give us an answer of 7.941. Now, there are 3 decimal places here, while there's 2 over here. So our final answer needs to have just 2. So looking at this guy, 7 we don't care about. The 7 will stay the same, but we care about these 3, and we just need to reduce them by 2. In this case, we're going to actually just be rounding down, technically speaking, and it'll be 7.94. Okay, ditch the 1. Let's do one where we do all three together, and we're going to we're going to do both operations, and we are going to add one that does not have a decimal, and we're going to figure out what to do with that. Okay, so looking at this bad boy, excuse me, oh my goodness, sorry about that. Okay, just double checking here. Okay. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-bum-bum. That's interesting. Actually, we're not going to go with this one. Not with that one just yet, just because I didn't do it. I don't want to embarrass myself and have to make 20 different videos on saying why it was wrong and have to restart this one. I've got a better one ready to go here. Let's do a little simpler, 23.16.4 plus 22.0. So here we've got one that does not have a decimal in it. So let's go ahead and see what we have to do here. So let's just plot this in. 23.16.4 plus 22. Okay, so what we get here on our calculator is 61.4. Now, how many decimal places do we have here? We've got 1. How many do we have here? We have 1. How many do we have here? We have 0. So, if we have 0 decimal places, our answer has to show 0 decimal places. So, our final answer here isn't 61.4, it's just 61. Okay. Now, the reason why, again, we really don't do this is because most of the problems that we practice are just multiplication and division in chemistry. So why even bother with this? Well, you may run into this down the line. It's good to have somewhat of a working idea of what you do here. We just really don't practice it because it's just not practical. We just don't really use it. We use multiplication, we use division. So, but again, it's extra credit opportunity. Again, the extra credit will be in the form of like a worksheet, but it will be just like parts of the worksheet, not a full worksheet that's extra credit. So just keep that in mind. I might give you some extra credit when we get closer to the Unit 5 test. That's something to still be determined. But anyway, we're going to practice this, and it's something to know for the future. So that's what it looks like when you add and subtract and keep sig figs. We really just care about the decimal places. But just then remember, what's more important is remembering that when you multiply and divide, that we care not about the decimal places, we care about the number, the sheer number of sig figs. Okay, so don't forget that. Sheer number of sig figs here, number of decimal places here. Okay, that's really the big difference between adding and subtracting versus multiplying and dividing. So if you guys still have any questions for me, make sure that you get a hold of me, make sure that you contact me in any way. And then that's all I have for the rest of the video here. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.